Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe and turn on notification.
Thomas was 42, and his existence, up until that rainy Sunday in March, had adhered to a blueprint of absolute precision. For 20 years, he had operated as a forensic auditor. His life was defined by the detection of discrepancies, the analysis of tax evasion, and the soothing, binary predictability of numbers. He was a man of method, an organized creature, who found his only true solace in the logic of a balanced ledger, and the rigid clarity of a spreadsheet. Outside the sterile walls of his office, his domestic life appeared equally structured, a mirror image of his professional success. He had been married for 14 years to Sarah. To the external observer, and indeed, to Thomas himself, Sarah was the ideal variable in his equation. Thomas believed, with the arrogance of a man who rarely made calculation errors, that he had constructed an unshakable institution. Their routine was a smooth, well-oiled machine. Dinners at 6:30, weekend excursions, discussions regarding the children's academic metrics, and modest, fiscally responsible vacation plans. Sarah had always been a constant. She never exhibited the classic variance of a cheater. She did not guard her phone with paranoid intensity. She never returned home late without a verified alibi. Thomas trusted her completely, not out of romantic passion, but out of logical deduction. The return on investment for their marriage was high. That Sunday morning, the sky was a bruised gray. The family was preparing to depart for Sarah's parents' estate. Thomas was in the living room, aligning the magazines on the coffee table into perfect, right angles. Sarah descended the stairs in a rush. She reached for the large, worn leather tote bag she had carelessly abandoned on the side table. The bag was heavy. The strap, weakened by years of friction, snapped. It happened in what felt like slow motion. To Thomas's analytical eye, the bag did not just fall. It surrendered to gravity. It hit the hardwood floor with a dull, heavy thud, vomiting its contents across the polished oak. A chaotic spray of items, a leather wallet, oversized sunglasses, a notebook with a cracked spine, and a tube of crimson lipstick that rolled in a perfect arc. And there, resting precisely in the center of the debris field, was a small, rectangular, white box. Thomas, who had been folding a throw blanket, rotated his head at the sound. His vision, trained to spot the single erroneous digit in a 1,000-page report, locked onto the anomaly. Instantly, Sarah dropped to a crouch. Her movements frantic, abandoning all grace. But the data had already been captured. The white box, Plan B, emergency contraception. The branding was distinct. The implication was absolute. Thomas did not yell. He did not gasp. He walked across the room with a measured, predatory gait. He knelt beside his wife, and before her shaking hand could close around the white box, his hand, steady, cold, and firm, intercepted it. She froze. Her respiration rate was elevated, likely 25 breaths per minute. Thomas examined the packaging. He turned the box over. The blister pack inside had been breached. It was empty. His mind began to run the calculations. Fact 1. Sarah had undergone the insertion of a hormonal IUD 5 years ago. Fact 2. An IUD renders emergency contraception medically redundant. Fact 3. The pill was missing. It had been consumed. There was no legitimate variable to explain this object's presence. The equation did not balance. Thomas looked up at Sarah. "What is the function of this item?" Thomas asked. His voice was terrifyingly calm. A flat line on a monitor. Sarah opened her mouth. Her jaw worked, but no sound emerged. I found it at school," she stammered. "One of the senior students. They must have dropped it." The lie was structurally unsound. It was weak, desperate, and insulting. To his intelligence, Thomas knew every nuance of Sarah's vocal patterns. He knew that when she lied, she blinked rapidly. "Sarah," he said, pronouncing her name like a judge. "Do not fabricate data. Respect my intelligence. If not, our contract." At that moment, Leo appeared in the doorway. Thomas forced the muscles of his face into a mask of normalcy. "In 5 minutes, Leo. Go upstairs." Thomas stood up. He walked to the living room doors. He closed them. He turned the lock. The click was loud. In the silence. "Now," Thomas commanded. "The data." "Sarah. Input the data." Sarah began to cry. Then, in a whisper that was barely audible, she confessed. There is a person." The words landed like lead weights on the scale. Thomas felt the floor shift, but he locked his knees. "There is a person," she repeated. "It has been 6 months. 6 months." Thomas processed the integer. Half a year. Identity. The question was icy. "Daniel," she whispered. "The owner of the gym." Thomas accessed his memory banks. Just a service provider. An expense line item. Nothing that had triggered a risk alert. And this pharmaceutical? Thomas raised the crushed box. "Timeline of consumption?" Sarah flinched. "Last week. There was an accident. I panicked." "Location?" "A motel. The Traveler's Inn." Thomas felt a wave of nausea. He visualized Sarah in a sordid, cheap motel room. "How many occurrences?" "Sarah? I don't know," she wailed. Many. A nonspecific quantifier. It implied a habit. A routine. Thomas turned his back on her. "Does this Daniel know you are in a binding marital contract? That you have dependents?" "He knows," Sarah whispered. "He said he didn't care." The amorality of the response severed the last thread of connection. He spun around. His face was a slate of granite. "Pack your personal effects. You are vacating the premises. Immediately." "Thomas, no. Please. There is nothing to negotiate. The contract is void. You breached it." He walked to the door and unlocked it. "You can go to a hotel. You can go to Daniel's apartment. I do not care. But you will not sleep under this roof. Not with me. Not with my children." 45 minutes later. Sarah walked out the door. Thomas locked it. He pressed his forehead against the cool wood. For exactly 3 seconds. That night, after the children were unconscious in their beds, Thomas sat at the kitchen island. The house was silent. He began the audit. He accessed their joint bank accounts. He downloaded the raw CSV files. He opened a new spreadsheet file, labeling it simply audit_SV. He began to scan the data. His eyes moved with the speed of a machine. He looked for patterns, anomalies. There they were. Cash withdrawals. $300 every Friday. Credit card statements. Small charges. At a coffee shop on the outskirts of town. He mapped the location. It was directly adjacent to the Traveler's Inn. He opened her cloud account. He accessed her location history. It was a map of betrayal. January 12th. She claimed to be at a parent-teacher conference. GPS data placed her at the Traveler's Inn for 3 hours. February 14th. Valentine's Day. She had met Thomas for dinner at 7. GPS placed her at the gym owner's apartment. At 4:30. Thomas felt a cold, bitter bile rise in his throat. The duplicity required a level of sociopathy he hadn't realized she possessed. He cross-referenced every date. He took screenshots of everything. He compiled a dossier. It was thorough. It was irrefutable. It was a weapon. By 6 a.m., he had a timeline. 6 months. 42. Confirmed encounters. He saved the file to an encrypted drive. The emotional center of his brain had been quarantined. On Monday morning, Thomas drove to the office of Robert Klein. Thomas presented the dossier. The photos. The bank statements. The GPS logs. This is comprehensive, Robert noted. I want full custody, Thomas said. And I want the house. We need to prove that her conduct was detrimental to the children's welfare, Robert warned. She brought the emergency contraceptive into the home, Thomas stated flatly. It fell on the floor, where my daughter plays. Furthermore, on the date of January 12th, she left the children unattended. For 45 minutes. Robert raised an eyebrow. You have proof? I have the neighbor's security camera footage. Time-stamped. Against her GPS data. In the days that followed, Thomas initiated the scorched earth protocol. He filed for divorce. He froze the joint accounts. He changed the locks on the house. The story began to leak. In their affluent suburb, gossip was a currency. Thomas did not spread the rumors himself, he simply didn't stop them. The news wildfire consumed Sarah's reputation. Daniel, the gym owner, proved to be a liability. Facing the threat of scandal, he panicked. He broke up with Sarah via text message. Sarah called Thomas one evening. Drunk. He left me, she slurred. Are you happy, Thomas? I did nothing to him, Thomas replied. I merely prepared a legal subpoena. If he fled, that indicates his lack of character. You chose a low-value partner. Sarah. I miss the kids, she sobbed. Just let me come home. Thomas stopped writing. You are a liability, he said. You introduced chaos into a stable system. There is no recovery from that. The trust is at zero. I'm your wife. You were my wife. Now, you are the defendant. He hung up. The divorce was finalized 8 months later. It was a bloodbath. But only for one side. Thomas was granted primary physical custody. Thomas kept the house. He kept the retirement funds. He kept the routine. Sarah moved to a neighboring town. She aged rapidly. The lines around her eyes deepened. Thomas himself felt light. The rage had evaporated, leaving behind a vast, cool emptiness. He did not hate Sarah. He simply ceased to care about her existence, other than as a logistical hurdle. 1 year after the separation, Thomas attended Sophie's school play. Sarah was there, sitting 5 rows back, alone. After the show, Sarah approached him. Thomas, she said. Her voice was brittle. Sarah. He nodded. Polite, but distant. I wanted to thank you, she said, for not poisoning them against me. Thomas looked at her. He saw only a stranger who had made bad calculations. I do not poison the data, Thomas said. I provide them with structure. They need a mother, even if that mother is flawed. Sarah flinched. I regret it, Thomas. Every single minute. I miss us. She reached out. Thomas stepped back. A micro-adjustment of distance. That is unfortunate. For you, he said. But I do not feel the same. You don't miss me, she asked. 14 years, Thomas. Thomas considered the question. He ran a diagnostic on his emotional state. No, he said. I feel peace. The system is optimized now. There are no secrets. There are no variables I cannot control. You're a robot, she whispered. I am stable, Thomas corrected. And stability is preferable to the chaos you provided. He turned away. Goodbye, Sarah. 2 years passed. The Vance household was running at peak efficiency. Thomas had re-entered the social market. He met Elena. A partnership based on transparency and mutual benefit. There was no desperate passion, and therefore, no risk of catastrophic heartbreak. It was Leo's 12th birthday. Thomas threw a party. Sarah was not invited. Thomas stood on the deck, holding a craft beer. He watched Leo laughing. The scene was idyllic. It was a script that he had written, directed, and produced. He thought of Sarah briefly. He realized he had won. He had retained the assets. He had protected the dependents. He had eliminated the threat. But, as he looked up at the first star appearing in the twilight sky, a thought occurred to him. A stray variable he hadn't accounted for. He felt no joy. He felt satisfaction. Yes, but the deep, messy, warm, terrifying joy of vulnerability, that was gone. He had cauterized it. Along with the pain, he was the master of a silent, perfect kingdom. He took a sip of his beer. The bitterness was pleasant. "Thomas?" Elena called out. "Coming," Thomas replied. He turned his back on the stars. He walked into the light of the house, closing the sliding glass door behind him. The lock clicked into place. With a sound of finality. The past was a closed account. The guests have departed. The biological units are in REM sleep. I am sitting on the patio. I have deleted Sarah's contact information from the emergency favorites list on my phone. I have replaced it with the number for the 24-hour pediatric urgent care. This is a logical update, reflecting on the trajectory of the last 24 months. The data suggests that trust is an inefficient strategy for long-term survival. Trust introduces latency. Trust introduces blind spots. I watched a spider weave a web in the corner of the porch light earlier. It does not trust the fly to fly into it. It builds a structure designed to capture. It waits. It consumes. It repairs. I am the spider. I am the web. I feel a heartbeat in my chest. 60 beats per minute. Resting heart rate is optimal. The narrative that love conquers all is mathematically incorrect. Control conquers all. Resilience conquers all. Indifference conquers all. I finish my beverage. I rinse the glass. I turn off the lights. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next.